Good afternoon, parish orphans and retrogrades. Today I come to you talking about not the Pope. Pray for him. He's had a surgery and is in Gemelli Hospital, where my daughter stayed 12 years ago. But a more conceptual issue, a deeper issue, an issue that involves dialogue like everything else. And it involves dialogue posited by Bishop Barron, specifically on the topic of abortion. He did a short video last week, and I had some very detailed responses to pieces of this short 8 or 9 minute video. And I'd like to bring these to you now, and also, more than anyone, submit them to Word on Fire and Bishop Barron, because obviously we ought to be, between the two of us, able to do great dialogue. He's saying he's open to dialogue with everyone, and especially with the absolute alt-left extremists known as pro-abortion. Just so you know who I'm talking about, people, these are the folks in America who believe that it ought to continue to be legal to murder human fetuses in the womb. So if one will do dialogue with these folks, then one ought to be able to do dialogue with anyone, which we're going to show you some clips by Bishop Barron really quickly here. And you're going to see that he pledges to do dialogue with anyone, that it's a good idea all the time to dialogue friendly with those whom one has disagreements. Okay, so we're going to get into that in just a second. Do pray for the Pope. There's a lot going on in the Catholic world, but this conceptual discussion on abortion itself, and even on dialogue itself, dialogue about dialogue, or Bishop Barron did a monologue about dialogue, and I guess I'm doing one to boot, coming your way in just a second. I want to remind you to go to realestateforlife.org. If you're a blue stater, a conservative or a Christian or both in a blue state, you need to get out of your blue state while you still can. Something else is probably coming down the pike that'll make you wish in a year or maybe 2 years that you'd gotten out in the middle of 2021. The good folks at realestateforlife.org will help you do so. Go check out their website and see how quick, how expedient the process can actually be, even though it's daunting. Don't be daunted. realestateforlife.org. Also, similar kind of concept. Get out of blue states, get out of Catholic education, get out of public school education if you have your kids being taught there. Catholic school mills are basically Common Core public school plus a very silly religion class that'll make your kid disbelieve in religion. 1 out of 20, maybe at most, if I'm being charitable, 1 out of 15 Catholic schools is what we call an academy and is very faithful. I'm not talking to you parents, but everyone else has the kid in unfaithful Catholic schools. Get out today. Go to timothyjgordon.com. We are providing, starting in September, classes for homeschoolers. timothyjgordon.com. Click enroll, and you will be impressed that these adult classes that we had starting a year ago have now been shifted to focus on a young adult, that is to say, a late middle school and high school audience. We still have our adult ed classes, Algebra 1, Scripture, Intro to Latin, U.S. history, classes like this, in addition to Aristotle's ethics and church history, Catholic social teaching. Good stuff for all ages, basically 12 and up. Go to timothyjgordon.com and click enroll. Also, I try not to bother you guys about this stuff, but do click subscribe, get notified. You got to click the bell and like this video. Please do it now if you can. I don't like to be a pest, but all other YouTubers do it. The more content I watch, the more I realize I'm the only one not pestering you guys. Like, subscribe, hit the bell. Do it now if you can. On the same note, not wanting to pester you, please, if you do like this content, go to Patreon and support me, Timothy J. Gordon. We need your help. We are literally less than 2 months away from releasing The Case for Patriarchy. I'll show you the book cover very soon here. We're very excited about it. And we're going to fall under, in every literal sense, the close scrutiny of the left, which means, look, they're demons. They're going to be really coming after us. We need your help. Go to Patreon and support Timothy Gordon if you're so willing. I really appreciate it. And you get tons of great content and goodies for being a patron. I really appreciate you. That's how we roll. Now, so Bishop Barron did this video called Pro-Abortion Politicians, Can We Actually Dialogue? There's a few points here. They're basically three. I'll number them. Three important points that I'd like to make to the good bishop. 1, 2, and 3. Two of them are on the notion philosophically of abortion itself. They're specific points because Bishop Barron is anti-abortion. He wouldn't list himself otherwise. The third point involves dialogue. And I think I'm going to take them backward. I think I should open up by discussing dialogue itself. Now, here's why. The people that in this country and in Europe and around the world support abortion are the worst kinds of extremists imaginable. And as I watched Bishop Barron's admittedly anti-abortion video, he's an anti-abortion figure. It was interesting because he seemed to regard his opponents, the pro-abortion people, a little bit less like radicals and more like members of the mainstream. And the only reason I could fathom for his regard, less radical regard for these radicals than what they actually are, is the fact that they've preponderated by the numbers. Roughly half of people believe in some form of abortion. If you include rape and incest as exceptions to the rule or less bad instances of abortion, they're really not. Then it's more like 60 or 65% of people are pro-abortion. So I think from the outset, I'll show you a clip here in a second, that Bishop Barron might have a sort of conceptual hurdle with the notion of calling 50 to 65% of the people out there radicals, or at least regarding them that way, even in his own mind. This is a dangerous, dangerous position to have. Aborting a 2-week-old fetus in the very beginning of the first trimester, folks, is literally as heinous a murder as killing a 60-year-old man that's got 10 kids. It's literally as bad to kill a first trimester fetus as one of the babies recently born under the Born Alive protections in some state that Bishop Barron was rightly talking about. It's literally as bad to kill a first trimester baby as a partial birth abortion, late third trimester baby. The reason that I'm setting all this foundational groundwork at the beginning of this talk is because I want to talk about dialogue itself. I'm opening up about dialogue itself. And Bishop Barron says something like this. He goes on to extol the virtue of dialoguing with people you robustly disagree with, like all the time, amicably. And he says, if that's what you mean by dialogue, then yeah, I'm all in favor of it, like all the time. I agree. Now I agree. I have a strong track record of agreeing. I want to talk for half a minute. I'm not going to belabor the point about Bishop Barron's track record here. Could we go to this clip? I'd like you guys to see it yourself. If we have that clip up, it'll be good to show you.
Yep. Let's see. Okay, let's try this. Tell me.
It's what he says before my quote.
Views and over 10,000 comments. So clearly,
he says, if that's what you mean by dialogue,
the wide range
then yeah.
Of people who enjoyed this discussion.
This is actually not it. This is the Peterson dialogue. He's going to say, what I want to do is grab the quotation where he's talking for a little bit, and then afterwards he'll say, if that's what you mean by dialogue, then yeah, I'm all in favor of it, like all the time. And he defines it in this clip as some sort of all-encompassing, basically 24/7, 7-Eleven, always open to dialogue conception, which I say is pretty good. But I wanted to let the good bishop speak for himself on this. It's around minute 5, second 26.
Okay, let's try this.
Yeah, we'll run it back. We'll flush it.
Let's see.
and see if it goes down again.
Let's see if this works. Okay.
Sometimes I think the term dialogue, which is thrown around a lot today, is used in a very casual sense to mean, always being open and friendly and willing to talk even to those, who are opposed to our point of view. Yeah, okay. If that's what you mean by dialogue, I'm all in favor of it, like all the time. I think of that line from Man for All Seasons when Thomas More says to his wife, whatever can be accomplished by smiling, you can rely on me to do. And I don't mean
okay. All right. So this is great. I mean, this is a great approach to have to dialogue itself. And as viewers of my smaller channel, respective to Bishop Barron's, know, I'll dialogue with anyone all the time. And more than just doing the dialogue with them, I'll actually tell them, it's few and far between, but I'll say, no, I think you're right and I'm wrong. I need to make an adjustment here. Famously, this happened in some detailed ways, some very small detailed ways to my position on Vatican II as I wrote this book and did dialogue with people like Richard Decloux. The purpose of dialogue is not just friendliness. It's not just barter. And I want to talk about Bishop Barron's conception of it as barter alone in a second. But it's also to help us reevaluate and reconceptualize a topic at hand in our own minds. It's iron sharpening iron. And that's not the third reason for it. I just listed that reason for it third. It's actually the first reason for it. We dialogue. This comes from Socrates, then Plato, then Aristotle in the Athenian tradition, in order to render what is clearly philosophically coherent as philosophically coherent in our own minds. It's big in Western civilization. So the problem, the basic problem here, and I'm not going to belabor the point, is I've reached out for dialogue to Bishop Barron before. So have others on what you'd call the traditional Catholic right. And, Taylor Marshall was one of them. I'm not one of these tin pot dictators with a mic in front of them that says, dialogue with me or you hate all dialogue. There's only so much time in the day. That's fine. So some guys, when they reach out for dialogue, they get butthurt if their call for dialogue was not responded to in a way that's favorable to them. That's not quite what I'm doing here. I understand there's a fixed number of interviews that any person like Bishop Barron or Taylor Marshall or myself can do. I get it. But here's the problem. Bishop Barron has spoken of Marshall, and Marshall and I have our differences, as if he's more extreme. His book Infiltration, which I think in the com box of one of the two of their shows, he referred to it as, come on, he laughed him off and he said, why would I dialogue with this guy? This is a paraphrase. Essentially, why would I dialogue with this guy? Have you seen his book? It's so extreme. My response to that is, one, okay, admittedly, it's less extreme than abortion, killing a human being in utero in the first week of gestation, second week of gestation. I'm not even talking about third trimester, partial birth abortion, born alive, where they kill the failed aborted baby on the table. I'm not talking about that. And Bishop Barron talked about that at great length. I'm gonna pull a couple of those quotes in a minute. I'm saying Taylor Marshall's book Infiltration was not nearly as extreme as the prospect of you, Bishop Barron, doing dialogue with any pro-abort. And I know you're anti-abortion. I'm not trying to mischaracterize. Okay. Now, the second point is, you could say, well, Infiltration could have been better sourced. Fair enough, right? Many will join you there. Nevertheless, even if a book needs to be far better sourced, needs 4 times as many citations, one, the perspective shared by that book is the perspective shared by many, not just on the extreme right wing, but basically most people right of Bishop Barron in the Catholic Church. It's a perspective that I share with Taylor, right? I'm writing a book on a basically similar co-aligned topic. Now, this is where citation is very, very important. But, and I'm going to see to that in my book. But the point is, it's not some sort of extreme position. And even if it were a more extreme position, like the claims of, I don't know, the late Malachi Martin or someone like that, or the Fatima Center that Bishop Barron turns up his nose at, well, those views by the Catholic far right are still not nearly as radical, not nearly as far from center, which is to say truth, as the position of a pro-abortion dialogue involved politician or culture warrior from the left. They're not nearly so close. So once you say, Bishop Barron, that I think it's a great thing all the time to do dialogue. If that's what you mean by dialogue, then yeah, I'm all in favor of it, like all the time. Well, then you're gonna have to pick one of us on the Catholic, right simpliciter. I don't really like far right, but I guess you'd call it the Catholic far right to do dialogue with. Now, I would posit, I get there's a history, like with someone like Marshall. Even if you posit there's a history with me, then that's fine. But you and I could do dialogue and have probably fruitful dialogue on theology, because I'm not a denier of Vatican II. I'm not a denier of the hermeneutic or anything like that. But that's not even what I'm calling today. I'd like to do dialogue on abortion, because it's the most pressing moral issue with you. This proves that it's not going to be a arm wrestling competition. You and I, Your Excellency, should do dialogue on abortion, because you're talking about your willingness to do it with the people that you're far, far removed from, the left, the abortionists, the murderers. Now, me and you are much closer on abortion, I think, than you and I are on theological issues. So let's leave those to the side and let's just talk about these two issues, which I'll call issues number 2 and 3 for this talk. He will say, look, this is at minute, if you're following along, it's minute 4, second 38. He'll say, in any real dialogue, there is a kind of give and take, a willingness to take steps in the other direction. He's talking specifically about abortion dialogue, not dialogue writ large, but can we get that quote?
It seems to me there's a kind of give and take. There's a willingness to, each side going a few steps in the other direction. I think of the many interreligious and ecumenical dialogues I've been involved in.
Okay, so that's good there. I don't want to belabor the point that it really is. It's become a trope that's, I think, a fair one, if that's not a contradiction in terms, that Bishop Barron will not dialogue with anyone further to the right than himself, theologically. And that's not even what I'm calling for today. I think that's something he's going to have to revisit in his conscience. Why won't I dialogue with anyone on the right? Even though I am willing to dialogue with people on the left. But what he says here applies with a special force to abortion. Now, this is a technical error that I think he's making in good faith that he's not seeing. And this is why it would be fruitful for Bishop Barron and I to talk. There's a very real distinction between beginning the abortion dialogue with a pro-abort in order to eradicate abortion at its edges, i.e., partial birth abortion, which he mentions, and born alive babies, failed abortions. Okay, that's A. There's a very real distinction with that, which is totally valid. We're going to chip away at abortion at its edges. And on the other hand, B, doing A by positing that partial birth abortion and born alive babies are kind of actually more grievous, or maybe accepting the condition, the presupposition by your pro-abort dialogue, that these are actually more grievous than your typical first trimester abortion. And there were times in Bishop Barron's talk where I don't think he was trying to make this concession, but he wasn't mindful of the very fine line between A, beginning the eradication of abortion at its edges with these extreme cases, which is totally fine, and B, doing that, accomplishing A, by accepting the presupposition that really partial birth abortion is worse than first trimester abortion. It's not. Murdering a 50-year-old man with a 10-kid family is not worse than aborting a first trimester, 2-week gestation baby. That's a really important distinction. Now, can we trade political capital with the Dems, the murderous Dems, in order to start chipping away at partial birth abortion or born alive? Yes. But here's the thing. The political capital we use in such barterings cannot be abortion related. We can say, okay, fine, you can hike the taxes up more, Dems, if you'll give up partial birth abortion or born alive abortions, whatever you call them, just murders. No, he as Bishop Barron notes, they will not do this. There's a reason why. He never investigates the reason why. Why is the left so extremely committed to all instances of baby murder, human young murder? Well, that's a whole other talk. And Bishop Barron didn't begin down that path, so I guess I won't. But let's at least suffice to say this one thing. The dialogue is useless there. And he seems to acknowledge that. But why is the dialogue useless? Why are they so trenchant on that point, recalcitrant? There's something more going on. And as maybe the most popular bishop in the American church, and probably in the Western world, he ought to have the backbone. Your Excellency, ought to have the backbone, and maybe you do, to say, because I know we mostly agree on this issue, if not theology, to say there's a reason why they're this recalcitrant. There's something more going on. Okay? But to make that distinction seems like I'm picking nits. I'm not. I'm saying if we're going to start chipping away at partial birth abortion and born alive abortion politically, legislatively, by I guess Republicans trading with the Dems, the idea of taxation, or dare I say, I'm hesitant to even say that immigration should be traded on there, because that's so important in its own right. But if abortion's preeminent, then it's preeminent. So trade any other topic, but you can't trade, an abortion concession by the Dems for an abortion concession by us. Like, we'll never bother you about first trimester abortion, because it's actually ontologically, in reality, not at all worse to abort a partial birth baby, with its legs sticking out of the uterus, or however they do it, than it is to abort a 2-week-old in utero. One can indeed trade political capital to the Dems in order to get them to stop murdering so much, in order to begin chipping away at abortion. But one cannot barter any conservative abortion-related tokens. That's where you trade, you sweeten the deal. If you're trying to trade one apple for another apple, you sweeten it with throw in an orange if you're getting the higher quality apple. This is what he fails to say, and what he seems to buy in the presupposition. And it frightened me a little bit. All right, the third point made by Bishop Barron that caught me off guard a little bit. He says, I would say to Catholics, especially, who are supporting the right to abortion, are you willing to support born alive? This is at minute 6, second 44. If you want to follow along, I'll play it for you here. This is the night in which all cows are black. This is too much. Let's go with this clip here.
Blunt and specific. I would say to Catholics, especially, who are supporting the right to abortion, okay, are you willing to support this born alive legislation as a first step? That's all I'm asking.
Okay.
Are you willing?
Whoa. Now, this is a major distinction that shakes up the moral foundations of the way that Bishop Barron ought to be doing monologue or dialogue. When you shifted the target audience from politicians, most of whom are not Catholic, politicians, particularly Dems, mostly not Catholic, to Catholics, who are pro-abortion. Whoa, Bishop Barron, this told me a lot about your frame of mind, Your Excellency. Here, you can't say, hey, let's at least start with born alive Catholics. Please don't support born alive. You can support, the tacit underwritten language is you can support abortion, Catholics, but not born alive. And I know that's not what you were trying to say. So I'm not trying to get a cheap dig, but I'm saying it shows the way you're thinking. Literally, when you, as maybe the most popular bishop in the world, Catholic, are addressing Catholics, your tenor has to change. Now it has to be imperious. Catholics, you are not allowed to support abortion of first trimester babies, the second day after conception. The second. It's as bad as murdering a 50-year-old. Catholics, this is me doing my best, Bishop Barron, the way I'd like to hear you say it. This is not a negotiation, right? I am standing in the shoes of the apostles. And I am telling you, this is like the fourth thing addressed in the Didache by the actual apostles. Abortion. It's always been connected with excommunication. It's always been specially connected as a kind of New Testament sin that cries out to heaven. They didn't talk about it as much in the Old Testament, but the Didache and the early catechisms address it as a kind of new covenant extra baddie, just an automatic way to unrepentant, unconfessed, to be sent to hell if you don't confess and change your ways here. So when the first distinction I'm marking is the distinction between, okay, we can begin chipping away at abortion by focusing on an intellectual error made by the pro-aborts. They think falsely, spuriously, that partial birth abortion and born alive babies they'll admit spuriously that it's worse than a first trimester baby. We can focus on that without trading any of our firepower in terms of getting rid of the first trimester abortion. That's the first distinction I made. The second distinction is a lot less subtle. It's Bishop Barron, Excellency, when you move to talking about Catholics as the target audience, which you did at about minute 6 in your talk, the tone has to change, because you're no longer just a Catholic bishop addressing non-Catholic Democrats, who's most of the Catholic Party. The Democrat Party, Freudian slip. You're a Catholic bishop specifically addressing your flock and adjacent flocks in other dioceses. And you've got maybe the biggest microphone in the world of all the bishops, aside from the Bishop of Rome. So you have to just say there's no negotiation here. You're not Catholic if you support abortion. So that was a big moment. That was frightening. I mean, that caught me way off guard, because I'm just trying to be respectful here. You're a man of the center. Even when you talk about Vatican II, you rightly admit there are 3 parties there, not 2, and you're a man of the center. Okay, I get it. That's how you keep your audience big. I get it. The fringe right throws red meat to its audience and gets eaten alive if they stop throwing red meat to their audience. Same pace fringe left. It's all red meat. Centrists, their red meat is undercooked meat. I get it. So you don't want to come off too hot. You don't want to cook the meats too hot. If you're a man of the center, that's how you keep the audience large. Okay, fine. But on abortion, this is the easiest to be black and white about of all the issues that demand our Catholic attention, especially your Episcopal attention. That's what I have to say. And I would invite dialogue between us. Maybe, I would love to do dialogue on the new Mass, particularly given the daily expected new motu proprio, which will undo the Latin Mass dispensation from 2007, Summorum Pontificum. But you've made it clear, and I've corresponded with Brandon that okay, religiously this might not be the time or the place. Well, I thought, you said quite literally it's always good. That's fine if I'm not the one to do it. I'd just encourage you to please do it with someone else on the Catholic rite that you see as reasonable. But at the very least, I think I would be the perfect party to do an abortion dialogue with, so we can talk about the absolute need for strong language, even if we're going to tend to the distinction I made in part A between, positing a beginning inchoate eradication of abortion by addressing an intellectual error made by the pro-aborts and making that error ourselves. First trimester abortion is not less bad than killing a grown human being or a partially aborted fetus. God bless you all. Thank you for tuning in. Everyone, stay faithful. Stay faithful to Mother Church. There is no other way. This is the one bark. Don't leave. If the bishops aren't going to lead us, and I mean the USCCB in particular here, then that's on their heads, not ours. Stay the course. Don't feel like we have to do more than we can do. Ultra vires. It's above our pay grade. Stay on the bark. God bless you. Deus Vult.